Hi, I'm Cheryl Leach. In this problem, we're asked to solve for x when given a right triangle. Well, let's see what we have in this case. We know that we have a right triangle, and the hypotenuse has the length of 10. This horizontal leg, that length is what we're looking for. And we're also given the angle, 60 degrees. Now, if we think about it, we know that our trig functions can be described as ratios of sides of a right triangle. So let's see if that's going to be helpful in solving this problem. If I look at my angle of 60 degrees, I notice the side that I'm looking for can be thought of as the adjacent side of that triangle. And the 10 is the hypotenuse. Now, what trig functions do we know that deal with the adjacent side and the hypotenuse? Well, there are actually two of them, and both will work. Let's go ahead and use the cosine, because I know that the cosine of an angle, the cosine of any angle, is the adjacent divided by the hypotenuse. Now, in this particular case, I'm looking at the cosine of 60 degrees. So I have the cosine of 60 degrees is going to equal the adjacent side, which is x, divided by the hypotenuse, which is 10. Okay? I know that the cosine of 60 degrees is 1/2. And so that means that 1/2 is x divided by 10. Now I can go ahead and solve this equation by multiplying both sides by 10. And when I do that, I end up with x being equal to 5. That was one way to approach the problem. But if you remember, I said that both the cosine and the secant deal with the adjacent and the hypotenuse sides. So let's try this problem again using the secant function. So the secant of any angle is equal to the hypotenuse over the adjacent. Again, the angle I'm using in this case is 60 degrees. So the secant of 60 degrees is going to be equal to my hypotenuse, which is 10, divided by my adjacent, which is x. Now the secant of 60 degrees is 2. So I have 2 equals 10 divided by x. Now this is a slightly more complicated equation than the one I had when I used cosine, but still very doable. I'm going to multiply both sides by x. I know that x won't be equal to 0. And then divide both sides by 2. And I get x equals 5, the same answer. Now, guess what? This isn't even the only two ways you can do it. Because I have a right triangle, I know that the sum of those two acute angles has to be 90 degrees. So if this angle is 60, that makes this angle 30 degrees. And now I have a whole other group of trig functions that I could use, because now if I use 30 degrees, I'm looking for the opposite side and I have the hypotenuse. So I can use trig functions that deal with the opposite side and the hypotenuse. In other words, the sine and the cosecant. You'll find if you use these techniques, you're going to get 5 for that leg again. So a lot of different ways of doing the problem. I hope this is helpful. Thanks.